This episode is sponsored by Frey's Flowers, a Western New York family-run flower farm and floral preservationist. They offer unique and one-of-a-kind pressed flowers in the shape of buffaloes. Every buffalo is handcrafted, and because they are made with flowers, each one has its own look and personality.
You can get a hold of them on their website at phraseflowers.com. That's Frase flowers.com. Or check them out on their Facebook and Instagram. Bring more joy and color into your life at Phrase Flowers. What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Friday, February 27th, 2025. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil, episode 336. And if you're watching on YouTube, my sister's down in Florida, and I am watching her 10-month-old puppy, who is currently sleeping on my lap. She made an appearance, Winnie. I did tell my sister she was going to be making her BSC podcasting debut today. She was actually on my lap when I was doing an interview, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. But yeah, newest podcast and newest BSC family member is Winnie Kenny in the flesh and currently napping right on my lap.
In the fur?
In the fur. Yeah, she's pretty matty. She needs to get a bath. That's my sister's job on Saturday. Not my job. I'm just dealing with a little stinky
You're
puppy
just the babysitter.
I'm the babysitter for now. She's one of those dogs that absolutely loves the snow. Yesterday, Brooke was going to the gym, and I had picked up Winnie and was like waving to Brooke like dumb pet parents do, like with the paw. And I get inside, and our screen door closes very slowly. So I set her down and didn't realize that she had snuck back out and to play in the snow again. And this dog refuses to come in. All she does is play dead weight, but she's 10 pounds, so it's easier just to grab her. But because of her fur, the snow just sticks to her, so she becomes a snowman every time I bring her in. And then you got to like brush her off with a towel. It's a whole process, Phil. It's a whole process. But as the uncle of this dog here, I have been watching her since Monday. She's a very joy, but very strange dog. Loves people, but has trust issues, is what I'll say. She's got trust issues.
Hey, as long as she's having a good time with your other dogs, that's all that matters.
Yeah, we just had a fun viewing party of my screen. I think I'm still there. We go. I don't know what's going on with my internet over here. We're gonna find out in post. But yeah, it's keeps saying I'm losing internet even though I'm wired. But yeah, she's getting along very well with our other dogs. It's a slow introduction. We usually, when we have fosters, we introduce them slowly. But you know, she's going to be a part of the BSC family for a long time. I think I'm losing connection again, Phil. I don't know what the heck's going on.
Yeah, you're still here. Let's just start the episode before we lose you forever.
Yeah. So remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article dropped on Tuesday. Mine dropped on Thursday. His was a very long breakdown. Give that one a read of the Bandits versus Toronto Rock and Seals. And my power rankings came out on Thursday, breaking down what's ahead for week 13. You can look at our store and go to our store on our link tree on all our social media sites or at the top of the website by hitting the shop tab. You can represent the BSC on the go and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. It's a Bandits only show though, so not going to be a time breakdown in this one.
Before we get the Bandits only show going, just real quick, USA, Canada, hockey tonight should be fun. The Sabres fans out there have not had a lot to look forward to hockey-wise, and a lot of people that like the Sabres also enjoy hockey in general, so it's nice to watch some exciting hockey, and it's fun to see the NHL players playing it extremely seriously and taking it very seriously and not like a Pro Bowl kind of game where they're just trying not to get hurt and doing whatever. Like they're going all in. They want to win. Really cool face-off. I know when this comes out, obviously the game will be over, but really cool to see USA, Canada, and how intense it is. Really fun to enjoy watching hockey a little bit again. It's been a long time for the Sabres fans to truly enjoy some, we'll say, high intensity hockey with some meaning and feeling behind it. It's been a little while for that. So even though it'll be over, hopefully USA won, but still really cool to enjoy some hockey again.
Yeah, you could have just said hockey. Sabres haven't enjoyed hockey, not even just meaningful hockey or like fun hockey. It's just hockey in general, because what the Sabres do is not hockey. They'll be back in action on Saturday, and we get to enjoy that once again. But let's dive into our BSC Bandits game. We started this in the offseason and brought it to the regular season. I think it's been a splashing success. I think hopefully everybody that's been playing has been really enjoying it. There's still 10 games to go, so even if you're sitting down towards the bottom of the leaderboard, a lot of things can happen. Matt Spanger's down for the year now.
Injuries for one.
Yeah, injuries, especially the call-ups. There's so many things that could possibly happen to the people at the top of the leaderboard, and Phil and I are both at the top of the leaderboard. Woo woo! But there's still a lot of games to go. This back-to-back game weekend just exploded with points. It took me a bit to update all the standings on Wednesday. Again, Wednesday is when it comes out, but I really like the addition to this. Hopefully we can expand and make it better this offseason. We're learning bits and pieces of it to try to improve it, and that's what we do on the show, is try to slowly improve different things on the show, the quality of it, and I'm excited to see where it goes, and hopefully I can take this year one championship home. But that means we got to take down Jackson B first, who's been the reigning, leading, undisputed number one team right now in the BSC fantasy game for the Buffalo Bandits. First place, 726, 26 points behind is the one and only co-host of this show, Phil, at 700 points. I'm in third, moved up one spot to third place, 647 points. Mike D moves up 4 spots with 620 points. Tim K drops down 2 spots with 616. My wife Brooke is in 6th place at 613. Stacy K moves up 2 spots at 607. Brad D falls down 1 to 598. Tied in 8th place is Kim D at 598. She's up 1 spot. And then a new addition to the top 10 is Janelle L, 591, up 1 spot. A lot of movement compared to last week, where we had like 10 people move up and a max of like 2 spots, I think it is. But everybody's important moment here. Everybody wants to know what producer Pat's up to and where he is. He's up at 13, moves up 7 spots, 569 points. He's off the lead, but he is moving his way up the leaderboard, 21 points behind 10th place, or 22 points, I should say. But our biggest risers were John B, up 9 spots, Eric K, up 9 spots, 563 and 555 respectively. A lot of movement this week all over the leaderboard. I think there were maybe 5 or 6 teams that didn't move whatsoever, and you and Jackson B were 2 of those.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the score was last time between Jackson and I. I feel like I got closer. I'm not sure if that's true.
You might have inched forward, yeah.
Yeah,
Farrell had a rougher
tough
game with the loose balls, so that did help you.
Yeah, it's tough to catch him. Been looking up at the leaderboard for a long time now, but no, it's been fun. It's been fun to keep track of, and hopefully for my sake, I don't know if he has Scanlon on his team, but hopefully with the recent injuries, which are not good for the Bandits, maybe we'll see some Scanlon in action this weekend, which would give me a little bit of a boost. But the rest of it's been pretty fun. Pat, congratulations on 13. Top 15. You're moving up. The big thing is don't fall back down.
I'm looking for his team right now. There's a lot of names here. I'm scanning. That's the issue. I should have put this. He does have Scanlon. So
all right, that is useless.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think the only difference was Farrell and Dawson, if I remember correctly, between you two.
All right, Dawson, pick it up.
Yeah, you need Dawson to become.
I need another Dawson
man.
Goal. That's what we need.
You need Dawson to become a face-off man. I think that's your biggest thing.
Or just empty netters.
And stop going to the penalty box. Those are negative points, so don't do
That's
that. But
true.
Top of the leaderboard in for the Buffalo Bandits, that is Dane Smith, 253 points in Tier 1. Tier 2 is McKay with 140. Weiss, and that's the difference between me and you. I stuck with Priolo, you switched to Weiss. Weiss has got 126. In Tier 4, Wires leads the way with 80. Farrell in the 5th tier, 79. And then the practice squad players, which is only 2. Scanlon's got 48. Dooley's got 15 with Spanger and Dylan Robinson. Spanger out for the year. Dylan Robinson out for a bit here. Dooley is an interesting name to keep. We're going to bring him up in the preview, but an interesting name to keep an eye on when it comes to the BSC game, which is far superior and more important. But yeah, it's. I think we did a good job of breaking players down into tiers because I don't believe there's any players currently that should be in a different tier. I think with the one thing we did do right was breaking the different tiers down.
Yeah, I think we did a good job looking, kind of just comparing last year's stats and where they would have stacked up in this game and trying to figure that out. I mean, you can still have huge breakouts from certain players, but I think that's the big thing. We haven't seen anyone overly produce. Obviously, producing better than their tiers, but not take off into the next tier.
Yeah, we haven't had a CMC of 2019.
Correct.
When I won the championship, that trophy back behind my head by beating that guy above me or next to me. He's probably next to me. On my screen, he's above me. But we'll go into the game. It's going to be a shorter preview because they just faced it. So we might be talking about more aspects of the game rather than just the overall preview that you normally get. And that's the benefit of having back-to-back against the same opponents. 7-1 Buffalo versus the 5-5 I said Saskatchewan Rush. They're on my brain. San Diego Seals. Buffalo coming in first in the league in goals for. It drops a bit from the last weekend, 15.25. Get just it together, guys. It's almost down a full goal. Pathetic. San Diego, 10th in the league, 11 goals per game. Buffalo's down at 3rd, though. They also fell in this department. Goals against, 10.38. And San Diego down at 6th, 11.3. Power plays, same. Both teams are struggling to put the ball in the back of the net on the power play. They're both 41%, tied for 12th in the league. But the biggest difference here is the penalty kill. Buffalo is 4th in the league at 59%, San Diego 50%. So this should be a game where Buffalo can capitalize on the power play. You saw them go 4 for 7 versus San Diego in the first matchup. It's going to be that facing a team twice is always the second matchup can always get out of hand. Staying out of the penalty box, there's a little bit of bad blood carried over, but it's a bit more interesting and it'll be something to monitor because these teams have only really played each other 5 other times. It's not like there's a ton of bad blood between each other. It's not like anything happened in game 1 besides the Matthew Wright versus the entire forward group to keep an eye on that would lead to and expect more penalties to be called and more bad blood that we saw Buffalo versus Toronto, for an example, round 2. So that special teams could play a bigger factor into this game if either team do get in trouble because San Diego has a tough time killing off penalties and Buffalo has had a tough time putting the ball in when they have the man advantage.
Yeah, and the big thing with that game, the last one, was starting slow.
Yes.
Even though a lot of them, none of the early ones were on the power play. There was one in the first quarter on the power play. But the big thing for the Bandits, they had 3 penalties within the first 15 minutes of the first quarter. That's a really hard way to get your team off and running and moving in the right direction. And then eventually they were down 4-1, 4-0, 4-1, and then 5-1. And only one of those, I think, was on the power play. But the point is, it's hard to get your team going correctly when you're in the box that long. It's just a very slow, sputtery start, and they know from the post-game interviews that they can't keep doing that. And even in Priolo's show, which I'm sure we'll mention a few times on this episode because he had some good information from a player going up against the team again. But they understand that they can't keep getting off to poor starts. And even McKay in his post-game said, the 2 slow starts in a row, it's just such a grind to have to get back into the game and fight your way the whole time where, like, when it's more exhausting. Obviously, being the team catching up, you're just a lot more stressed. You have a lot more going on, whereas the earlier games in the season that they had where they blew the team out by halftime and then just coasted to a victory, like, those games are a lot easier on the team, obviously. But even from a exhaustion standpoint from that weekend, it was just 2 really early holes they dug themselves in, and it's a huge, exhausting grind to fight your way out of that hole. So right now, I think one of the biggest things, and penalties did play a big part of it, is that first quarter.
Yeah, I mean, we can review the game a bit, even though you can just go listen to our Monday show, which we were kind of scatterbrained all over the place. That's kind of why
So
we were
maybe we'll
just like,
dive a
man,
little better into this this
yeah,
time.
I think
We
we
have one
both hit the
game.
stop button and went, oh, that was a bit of a rough show. We were kind of all over the place. And NLL, Buffalo stopped making back to back games. It's very difficult. I know there's one more on the schedule, but that one should be easier to discuss because it's San Diego, or I'm sorry, it's Vegas and Albany, I believe it is. But, last Saturday, less than a week ago, 14-13 overtime loss, down 4-1 after one. You mentioned it, the slow start, down 8-6 after two, down 11-10 after three, up 13-11 with 6:54 to go though, and then Courier tied it with 6 seconds to go. Berg wins it in overtime on a bad switch off that didn't actually happen. Already went over the power play. Buffalo was 4 for 7. San Diego was 2 for 6. But looking at San Diego's team, Hellier, 5 goals. He's got 9 goals in the last 2 games, 15 shots on net. You had Courier, who had an unbelievable stat line, 3, 2, and 5, 10 shots on net, 14 loose balls, 2 block shots, and a caused turnover. You had Watson even get involved with the 2, 2, and 4. That was his best game as wearing a Seals jersey. McIntosh had the depth scoring. Hellier had the depth scoring. Jackson really didn't score, but he assisted on 3 goals. So it was kind of a collection with Berg leading the way. And I was able to interview Cooper Perkins before this game that's going to be aired on Saturday. He was basically saying, like, early in the season with this team, it wasn't due to lack of firepower. You saw it in game 1. They scored 18 goals. It was them being too unselfish. So it's, can this defense get back to a spot where they're almost, San Diego to me almost looks more like Buffalo, where it's just so much firepower. I know there are injuries on the left side, but the right side is just so dangerous with the players they have. Can the defense limit what Westberg was able to do and expose, quote unquote, against this defense?
Yeah, is Benesh officially out next game?
He hasn't been ruled out. He was questionable, though, which is the biggest thing that stands out to me. It's not like he was doubtful. He was scratched like earlier on Saturday. So I'm not saying he won't be there, but I also wouldn't be shocked if they do activate him just because he was that questionable tag over the doubtful tag.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the big things, obviously, to watch with Benesh being one of their better forwards. But Priolo had mentioned it that Courier, they weren't really prepared for him to be on offense, and with him stepping up into the role he did, they didn't really know how to play him all that much because he's usually transition in defense, so they didn't really know how to react to him playing a full-time offensive role. And even he mentioned how shocked he was that he has a good shot. He's like, oh, this guy can really shoot the ball, and I think that's something that is huge for, so that's like one of the biggest things that we can discuss is just simply you just played a team and they were without Benesh, but the Bandits, not only on the back-to-back, but they were out without Robinson. Spanger goes down halfway through the game. Like, the team's very different on defense, and they've gotten a better look at San Diego on offense. So I think, obviously, everything funneled through Berg with the goals, and I think, obviously, they should focus on shutting him down. But they can also focus where else did their offense flow through, what else worked for San Diego against Buffalo, and now having that game and having just played that game, and like you mentioned, it's not one of those games like they played, last year or the year before. They've only played this team 4 times. It's not a Toronto where they know everything about every single player on that team because you see each other so many times a year. This is a team you don't see that often. So now they have not only recent games, but they just played them. And I think that's huge for the Bandits to learn how to defend against this offense. Courier, if he's up on offense again, might be one of the ones now they know to focus in on the left side. Like, okay, he did a lot of damage over there. That's somebody we need to key in on a little bit more. Ended up being second on the team in shots. Not something you would expect going into that game from a transition player to then be that high on the shot total list for that team. So I think the Bandits having a little bit more film and their defense having more film on this offense is huge. But like you said, that depth scoring was massive. I mean, McIntosh, 2 goals on 3 shots is huge. Hellier, 2 on 8. And even like you mentioned, Watson, 2 on 5. Like a lot of their depth scoring was scoring not due to volume of shots, but just due to things were working really well for them.
Yeah, and before we talk any more about this one, I want to get our first sponsor. I'm sorry, second sponsor. I haven't changed the wording. I should have changed the
You'll
wording.
get there.
Which is Tap That Tap Room at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. It's Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar. What that is you take your glass, you go up to the rotating 30 consistently off or 30 consistently rotating taps that offer beers, ciders, seltzers, sours, and beverages, malt beverages. I'm butchering. You normally do this one. I'm not fully onto this one. But what you do is you take the glass, you go up to the tap, you pick which one you want. They rotate all the time. They have online where you can find out what's coming up on deck as well. You put your little card there and you dispense as much or as little. I'm just going to pass this off to you, Phil, because I am butchering this. Again, you can see that we normally don't switch roles, and there's a big reason for it. But Tap That Tap Room, they are so much better than I am right now.
Yeah, this is back-to-back rough. This might be 3 rough episodes in a row for at least me. I don't know. We've been really struggling. But for upcoming events, they have Friday Happy Hour, which will be tomorrow if you're listening to this on Thursday. And after a few weeks of tough work and the winter weather, a happy hour sounds pretty good. But more importantly, Tap That Tap Room has become the place to watch Bandits games. And you might be wondering, will they have a watch party this Saturday with the game starting all the way at 10 p.m. on the West Coast? Well, the answer is yes. They are staying open late to show the entirety of the Bandits game with their classic ticket giveaways at halftime. You can find their other upcoming events on Facebook. And like PK said, find out what's on tap and what's on deck at tapthattaproom.com, where they have something
for everyone.
Nice job.
Yeah, what I tried to say, that is. Yeah, I'm going to have to practice in the dark with tears rolling down my face because they shouldn't have me read any kind of sponsor reads, because if you've listened to the show for the last 4 years, I'm not good at that English language kind of thing. Didn't get a good grade in it. Yeah, we kind of switched roles. We're switching up how we do some of these sponsor reads, and I'm still not used to doing. It's a tough role you had for the last year. I didn't appreciate it like I should have, but yeah, like I mentioned, I'm going to keep plugging it. We got to interview Cooper Perkins, who's play-by-play man for San Diego Seals, also co-host with Mackie Jenner of the NLL podcast, NLL Box Out with Mackie Jenner and Cooper Perkins. He mentioned that while they might not have exposed what Buffalo might have a weakness in, because he even said, Buffalo doesn't have a weakness. You kind of just hope that Dane Smith and Josh Byrne don't have a hot night and you find players that get hot. He did say that, speed might be the thing that can kill Buffalo, is if they're slower changing, or if the forwards are trying to get a back check and they don't do it successfully and they're slower getting off the field. The speed of DeChico, the speed of a Matthew Wright, the speed of Zach Currier, who's still going to be playing that type of transition role, even though for bits and pieces he's kind of like a Ian McKay, but plays more on the back end this season, where Ian McKay was taking it's even more offensive laden this season than Ian McKay was last year. So he's kind of playing 50-50 on both ends, especially with Ryan Benesh out. So if you want to limit what Zach Currier does, I wonder if you almost hope that Ryan Benesh is playing in this one, but then you got to deal with both of them. So it's definitely going to be an interesting one. But he said that speed might be something that they circle on to try to get this transition game going. And if all 3 of those players can run, you're going to have to rely on the defense getting back and stopping the ball in the transition game. So if they're able to, if that is a way that Buffalo could be exposed, they might be showing that to the league moving forward, because the next opponent on the schedule, and we're not going to really talk about them, is Saskatchewan. They have a ton of speed in their transition game. So if San Diego is able to expose that part of a quote-unquote weakness for Buffalo, does that show the rest of the league that might have speed, hey, this could be a way that you can expose and kind of get to Buffalo in the one small area that they might have a deficiency in?
Yeah, and Ian McKay also mentioned in the postgame that the Seals also have a very tough kind of full court press where they don't really allow the defense to cleanly get the ball out of their own zone, and it really wears the team down with the offensive players constantly being in your face, and a big part of that is also the transition. They move very fast, and over a game, especially on a back-to-back, but in general throughout a game that can just really wear a team down. Like you mentioned, if the offense, like a Smith, like a Fraser, like a Byrne, have to constantly be sprinting back to catch up and try to shut down these transition opportunities and also possibly stay out there and get caught up on defense. We've seen, yes, Byrne has gotten better at defense. Fraser has gotten better at defense. We know Smith is, other than he did get burned last game, being caught out on defense, but they've gotten better, but still you want your defense out there. You don't want your offensive players playing defense, but due to the speed of the Seals, sometimes they can get caught. And if that happens, like we saw, Dane Smith had that really awkward kind of transition where he was playing defense and normally he's a really good defender, but he got turned around a little bit, allowed an inside opportunity, and there was a goal because of it. So if the Seals can exploit that more and more, I think it's going to be a lot tougher. And I do think that is where a player like Dooley might come in handy a little bit more with his own speed to kind of go with it. And we'll see if he ends up getting into the action again. But he had a bit of a transition pep in his step as well in his first game, so he could be of assistance in that kind of area on this team.
Yeah, and I mean, just talking about the defense for San Diego being able to get in the transition game, it'll be very interesting to see if Buffalo's forward group saw anything with the defense. Again, it's so interesting, and we're probably going to see it again later this year. I believe they face the Roughnecks back-to-back weeks as well coming up on the schedule. But it's very interesting that you're facing the exact same opponent next week. I know Halifax had to deal with it. They were able to take advantage of it versus Philly, but we haven't seen it firsthand in a while besides the playoff games, and those ones are back-to-back days. So it's less about, okay, what type of adjustments, and it's less about us coming on the show. It's more about us than them, Phil. That's what it always is. But it'll be very interesting to see if they saw any type of things with the defense where they can expose it and possibly get a guy like Chase Frazier, who went scoreless, wasn't on the stat sheet whatsoever, involved in this game. Because I think with an away game in enemy territory, playing in an arena that opponents typically do not win in Pechanga, it'll be very interesting to see if they can get a guy like Chase Frazier when he's on. I think the rest of the offense gels through him. And when he's off, it's not that they're struggling. It's just they don't have that same type of swagger. So I think if you can get Chase Frazier a goal or two early in the first half, I think it's going to change the dynamic of that offense that we have been used to seeing for years and years and years.
And even Nanticoke. I mean, yes, he had some great opportunities. I'm not saying he had a bad game. And he's oftentimes, I mean, Fraser too, they're both kind of quiet until they're not kind of players where they will pick and choose their opportunities to have a great goal scoring opportunity. Fraser, I think kind of like you said, he just seemed like he was a little bit off, just kind of throwing stuff at the net. Nanticoke usually tries to do whatever he can to get inside and has great opportunities, but he wasn't able to cash in on one. And the other interesting thing in the second half of that game, they only had 4 even strength goals for the Buffalo Bandits. That is very unlike them, especially a team that's been great in the fourth quarter throughout the entire season. They only had 2 even strength goals in the fourth quarter. And like you mentioned, one last episode, one was by Weiss. So their offense even had less in the fourth quarter. They only had 1 even strength goal from an offensive player. That's something that needs to change. And part of that could be from the back-to-back weekend. You just kind of slowly die out with energy as the game goes on. But like you mentioned, it'll be interesting to see if they did find any weaknesses in the defense, any weaknesses in the goaltending, to see if they can really exploit something that they may not have been able to in that first game, not having the film that they do now.
Yeah, and I was just looking up, and I did some math on O'Rig just to see, hey, has he faced the same opponent back-to-back weeks in his entire career? The only time it happened was last year during the playoffs when he faced Albany. And game 1, he had a 74.5% save percentage, led in 13, made 38 saves. Game 2 the next day, he had a 73.3 save percentage, 33 saves, led in 12. So it's not a huge difference, but it was a bit worse off. He didn't have his best 2 games of his career last year back to back. The second game was a bit weaker, but it's not like there was a glaring issue with a young goaltender like him. And, talking to Cooper Perkins, again, the episode's out now. You can go listen to it, YouTube, wherever. But he pretty much said that Chris O'Rig is not your prototypical 22-year-old. Like, he has such confidence where it's not he related it to like a football player in high school where he just knows how good he is. He just has that confidence spewing off of him. If the ball goes in the back of the net, it's not really going to affect him. He's well beyond his years, in between the ears, he was saying, that, he just has that down the stretch. He makes those critical saves. And I think Cooper said it was 16 saves between overtime and the fourth quarter that he was able to make. And he shut Buffalo's forward group down the last 15 minutes of between fourth quarter and overtime. So it will be interesting to see if players like the Dane Smiths, players like Josh Byrne, who this is the third time they'll be facing a O-Rig, if there's aspects of his game that they can expose. Is he weak inside? Is he weak on outside? Does he have something like Matt Vince has where it's over his left shoulder where you can expose it there? So seeing a goaltender for the second time can either be beneficial or a big weak spot where you're just going like, man, I can't find an issue with this goaltender. There's nowhere I can put the ball to beat him.
Yeah, I didn't think he had a great game last game against Buffalo until, like you said, until it came to crunch time and he really shut it down. He did do a really great job down the stretch, keeping that minute. He made a few huge saves, especially a couple early on in overtime where he really needed to step up and be there. Outside of that, I thought he, especially quarters 2, 3, and 4, early on in the fourth, I thought he struggled a little bit, but some of that is on the power play, so not 100% really as well, especially when 2 of those are 5-on-3. Those are going to be really tough, and I do think as much as staying out of the box is important, I think a lot of this could come down to the even strength Buffalo offense versus San Diego and O-Rig's defense. Like you said, can they figure out how to get back to their ridiculous numbers of 14, 15, 16 goals and not rely so heavily on the power play where they are able to score more frequently, even strength, and not be shut out, when typically, again, this team's been really, really solid in the fourth quarter, coming on strong. The third quarter seems to be their weak quarter this year, other than the last 2 games of the first quarter, but the third quarter has been kind of their down or closer quarter, and then the fourth, they seem to really pick it back up and take over, and in this game, that wasn't the case. So what, other than being exhausted, what went wrong in that fourth quarter that maybe they could work on for this next game? And just, I think that even strength offense versus O-Rig and the defense is going to be huge.
I will break something to you though, Phil. The third quarter is not their weakest quarter anymore. It's the first, and I think a lot of it has to do with 1 goal in the last 2. They're averaging 2.75 goals in the first quarter. They're giving up 2.38, so no, not bad. They're still the only quarter that they're negative in is still the third quarter, and that's by 1 single goal. But their weakest quarter right now is first quarter, and it's because they haven't gotten out to a hot start since the Albany game. Albany, they went out to a 6-3 lead. First game, versus Philly, 3-1 lead. But Toronto, it was 5-5. It seems like the last 2 games, 1 goal, 9 against, has been it's been the slow start. If they can get out and get hot and get this offense going, like I said, if you can get Chase Frazier a goal or 2 in this first quarter, I think it definitely changes the dynamic and gives this forward group more confidence. And we kind of saw it last year where they were kind of slower to start. They were figuring out the team, and then at halftime they made the adjustments. I'm not saying that they went back to that whatsoever, but I do think they have to get out to a hotter start because they can't keep relying on the second, third, and fourth quarter to get hot. Because, not saying they can't, I'm just saying that they shouldn't. Because,
it almost worked twice.
Yes, it almost did work twice, but asking your offense to come back from a deficit like that, and then asking your defense and goaltender to lock it down while the offense builds that back up. Because as good as this offense has been, they do struggle on the power play, but they also struggle at times where they go through long-time goal droughts. And we saw that from the forward group, 15-plus minutes, no goals between the Dane Smith one to give them that 12 goals. And then we scored in transition later on, but no forward goals for the final 15 minutes of that entire game. You can't go through those kind of droughts, especially when you go down that early. I know they were leading, but it is something to monitor if they can get out to a hotter start than they have been. And, the last time they played in Pechanga in San Diego, I was sleeping on your couch because it was another late game, and it ended up being a 7-6 game with Steve Pirillo winning in overtime. Hopefully it's not like that. I wouldn't mind like a 10-9 game, but I don't want to sit through at 1:00 in the morning here on the East Coast with it being 7-6. Once again, please, we need some goals to be a little entertaining that late in the night.
That is the other big thing about this game is not only the offense, but also the defense. They've been struggling. They did this last year for a long time where they struggled for a while, but this time 13 goals against, 14, 10, 12, and then 14. So they haven't really had that stout defensive game in a little while. 10 goals is great. Albany's been wildly struggling, so tough to consider that a big win, but still, that is a good area you want to be, like 10, 11, 9, 10, 11, somewhere there, and they haven't really had that for quite a while now against some of the tougher teams in the league. So hopefully the defense for the Bandits can get back to a little bit closer to that lockdown ability that they had early in the season. I'm not asking for 7 or 6 even, but somewhere in that 8, 9, 10, 11 would be much nicer to see, obviously, than some of these other scores that are getting a little bit higher. And I think they can do it. I think the league is adjusting to how they played defense early on, and now they need to counterpunch. I think Vince has been fine, but he did struggle in that last game, and usually when he struggles for a game, he has a massive bounce-back performance, so hoping to see that from him. But I think the whole team, I know it was one loss, and I'm not going back to that loss as being anything detrimental, but some of these games have been a little bit closer than I think you'd like to see, and I think they just haven't had one of those dominating Bandits victories in a little while, other than Albany. But again, Albany's just doing horrible. So, I mean, yes, you should be able to beat up on a bottom team, but it'd be nice to see the Bandits in this kind of game. You have the film, you have the game you just played, you have that revenge kind of narrative. Yes, you're going all the way to the West Coast. Travel's going to be a little tough, but hopefully they can get a full, healthy squad there. Hopefully they can get up for this game, and this is going to be a big test for the Bandits early on. Like, yes, this team just beat you. This team just beat Toronto and Buffalo, two of the hottest teams in the NLL at the time. Can Buffalo rebound in this game and show that they truly deserve still to be number one in the NLL?
So I do have a question for you, but I want to go over our third and final sponsor of the show before I ask that question. I'm teasing. That's part of the business here, boys and girls. Phil, take it away with our third sponsor, Totally Buffalo Store.
The Totally Buffalo Store, their mission is to celebrate all things Buffalo with over 100 local artisans. They are your place to go when you need a gift for a friend or you want to shop for something for yourself. They offer 3 locations, one in, what'd you say, south, north, and...
in the middle.
Middle. 3328 Sheridan Drive in Amherst, 3459 Amelia Drive in Orchard Park, and 467 Center Street in Lewiston.
So we always say, and you hear it a lot, shop local, shop small, support small businesses. This is a great way to do it. Cellino Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is having their 2025 truck wrap contest right now. Totally Buffalo Store is there and can be voted for now. We've already done it. I've already signed up. It's so easy to do. If they win, they're going to get branding on one of the trucks plus $25 for each and every tune-up that Cellino Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling does for the complete year. Now, they have a post on their Facebook page that is Totally Buffalo Store Facebook page, that is. All you have to do is click the link. You hit the vote button. It couldn't be any simpler. You enter your email, and you're done. Give Totally Buffalo Store your vote so we can see their amazing logo on the truck in the area this year. It's something like this. I mentioned to start, but I'm going to reference it again because it's so important. Something like this, something so small, spending 2 seconds of your time to vote can make such a massive difference in the world of a small business like this. We always hear shop local, support local. This is a very easy way to do it, and it literally costs you nothing. It takes 2 seconds to do. Just go to Totally Buffalo Store's Facebook page, click the link, you hit vote for Totally Buffalo. It's already built in. You type in your email, you hit submit, it's done, it's voted for. Let's get Totally Buffalo Store the winner of this contest. Let's get them some money, and especially let's get their logo on one of these trucks. It's free advertisement. Nobody can advertise better than free. So support Totally Buffalo Store, support small businesses, and that is what Totally Buffalo Store does. Check out their website at totallybuffalostore.com. and check out their Facebook and Instagram pages. Love their stuff, and it's the place to go, especially for Buffalo Bandits fans that need more one-of-a-kind apparel out there. Phil, here's my question that I teased it before this. Again, it was a great tease. I'm just going to pat myself on the back because I've been struggling a little bit this episode. My question to you is, we had Matt Spanger go down for the season. We know he's not coming back, non-contact. It wasn't good. Hopefully he comes back and it's a speedy recovery. He got injured late last year as well. Back-to-back seasons. It's got to be tough for him. Hopefully he's back next season fresh and better than ever. Yeah, Dylan Robinson get hurt in the Toronto game. I don't expect him back in this one as well. You saw Taylor Dooley come in. You have Sam LaRue on the lineup. You have Trent Robertson down on the practice squad. They would have to send somebody down. With Matt Spanger getting hurt, they called back up Clay Scanlon. I don't know if that just means he's going to be a healthy scratch. I don't know what that means. But to you, what would your rotation be, assuming that Dylan Robinson does not play on Saturday? Who are your two healthy scratches, and who is replacing the two injured defensive players in the backfield? Is it, with Matt Spanger and Dylan Robinson not being there, you have to put two players back there. What do? Do you put McKay back on defense, put Scanlon as left forward? Do you just throw out Sam LaRue and Taylor Dooley, who do not have a ton of experience in the NL playing defense? Are you mismatching? Like, what is your, if you were Johnny T, what's your plan to counteract this seemingly improved and fixed San Diego Seals offense?
Yeah, I know, I think Spanger was the righty between them, so him going down is not great. Personally, I'm all for one of the ways you mentioned, and I love whenever they get the chance to throw McKay back on defense because he's amazing. And this is a team that also needs some transition help right now in a game like this, and that is what McKay is really, really great at. I don't think their offense, yes, McKay's been a big part. Yes, I think he just scored a hat trick against San Diego, so it's very hard
3,
to
3, and 6.
Pull that away. He had one of his, like you just mentioned, one of his better games offensively this season, so it's hard to try to take that out when you know it worked. But Scanlon's been a good part of the offense before. I think Scanlon's the kind of player that would be good to insert into this lineup for this kind of match where he gets the loose balls, he plays scrappy, he can get up there and just kind of cause some mayhem for the offense. And I think McKay shifting back to defense, especially like you just mentioned, like Robertson has the size to play defense if you want to bring that into the game. But he's a rookie. Dooley's a rookie. How many rookies do you really want on defense in this kind of game against very veteran forwards, which we've mentioned quite a bit with this team, and people have called them out for having so many veteran forwards. But I think you'd want an experienced defender like McKay to go back on defense and play there, throw Scanlon back into the lineup. And then I still like Dooley. I thought he had a good first game, so I would like to see him back in there. I know I'm skipping over my boy LaRue, who's played well so far when we've seen him this year. I really don't think he's played poorly. But in this kind of game, I just think the shifting around of Scanlon and McKay has worked before, and I think Dooley proved himself in that first game to do well enough to earn another shot at this team again.
I am in a interesting position because I think if Dylan Robinson's injury is more longer term, if he's out until April, I don't think it's a season IR because they would have put him on the season-ending IR. If this is a 1 week blip, if he's back versus Saskatchewan, I think the easiest solution is to keep Dooley back there. You send McKay back, and you bring in Scanlon, and your healthy scratches are Nielsen and LaRue. If this is a longer-term injury, you have to figure out, okay, what's the back end going to look like? So in that situation, I would keep McKay there. I would put LaRue in, and I would put Dooley in. Yes, that's a younger lineup, but they're going to have to learn. They learned by trial by fire last year with Wires and Belter and so on and so forth. I think that's what you would have to do. So I think if I'm sitting in the seat making the decision, and I know, okay, Dylan Robinson's not going to be back until late April. Again, all speculation. I have no idea. He could be back on Saturday. I have no idea. And then this whole question is just non and void, whatever the saying is. But no, that's it. Thank you. Again, struggling. I got the right letter to start. If he's done until the end of April, My game plan would be to keep McKay at forward because the offense is looking good. Throw Dooley back there, who I thought looked really good versus San Diego, and throw Sam LaRue back there as well because I thought he's played good. I don't think he's been flashy or anything like that, but again, he's transitioning from a forward to a defenseman. So again, he could be a lethal threat in the transition game if he gets that game going as well. So if it's that long, that would be my plan. But if it's just a 1 or 2 week thing, then I would make the adjustment. Okay, LaRue and Nielsen are my healthy scratches. Dooley is going to be one of my defenders. McKay is going to shift back into that transition role, and Scanlon's going to be my third lefty forward. That would be my game plan based on that situation. Again, no idea how long he's going to be out. He could be back Saturday, and you just skip this part of the podcast if he was.
Yeah, the other interesting thing is their upcoming schedule. I mean, they have the Rush and then the Roughnecks and the Roughnecks.
Yep.
The Rush and the Roughnecks are great teams right now.
Yep.
The Roughnecks, I believe, just put up 21, which is monstrous, and the Rush are right up there with the Bandits. So the other part of trial by fire is that schedule coming up. Do you really want to risk having players, I mean, no offense to them, like LaRue and Dooley learning at this point, but at the same time, the Bandits are 7-1, right? I mean, no matter what happens this game, they're sitting pretty nicely in their schedule and where they are currently in their season. So if it is truly long-term and you want to have these players learn for potential playoff injuries, and this is how they're going to learn is playing against the top competition, then, like you said, so be it. But if they know he's coming back and they want to make sure that I think they're putting their best roster out there, I think that was still, especially with the offensive firepower of the Rush and especially the Roughnecks, I think you would want McKay back there as that veteran defender, and then hopefully, like you mentioned, Robinson comes back at some point sooner than later, hopefully before playoffs, obviously. And then at that point, you would just shift McKay back up front. Could be interesting, though. Could be interesting to see how they break it all down. It's interesting with a team that has this much depth of what they end up doing due to injuries and how they kind of throw people out there. And Scanlon's had a good run. Dooley, I thought, was great in his first game. So Nielsen is sadly probably going to be a scratch until there's a righty injury, and hopefully there's not a righty injury. And LaRue, I thought, has played well in the games he's been in. So he's also been somebody who's growing as a defender. And I think the 2 games we've seen him, I think the first game he looked okay, and then he's been a little bit better and a little bit better every single time he's back out there. So like you said, maybe the way to just have this team as a unit progress forward is to have some of these depth players get more playing time, see what they can do, and have them learn the game on the fly.
Yeah, especially if you put McKay back there, you'll change my opinion on Transition Player of the Year.
That's true.
I'll put that back there. Again, he's not getting my vote for, and I don't have a vote, but he's not getting my BSC vote for Transition Player of the Year because I don't think he's been a transition player.
But even right now, like the same comparison, Zach Currier is slowly phasing himself out of the Transition Player of the Year award because he just played an entire game on offense. Yes, he had the block shots and the cause turnover. He's still playing some defense, but he's also been playing a much heavier offensive role, so he's kind of phasing himself slowly out of that question as well.
And our opinion is the one clearly that matters. But
yeah,
that will be our
most.
That will be our preview. I've actually liked this one a bit more, even though we were a little chaotic a bit. Not going just straight numbers and players to watch. That was the one benefit.
A little bit more theory.
Yeah, this was one of the benefits of a back-to-back. Don't like it, but we'll move on. This is the fastest milestone minute in all the land time. All these possible milestones can be found on X and Blue Sky. I'm sorry, Blue Sky. I keep forgetting to copy and paste and put it over there. I will promise that I will do it this week. We post them leading up to each and every game. So if you miss one because I am the fastest milestone minute talker in all the land and you don't want to listen back, you can just check out for them there. And away we go. Dane Smith is 2 assists away from tying Ryan Benesh for 8th place in NLL history. He averages 4.07. If Ryan Benesh plays, just factor that in. Dane Smith is 7 points away from tying Gary Gate for 10th place in NLL history. He averages 6.19 a game. Paul Dawson is 1 penalty minute away from passing Kyle Lafferty for 4th place in NLL history. He averages 2.29 a game. Dane Smith is 3 goals away from 400 for his career. He averages 2.12 a game. Chase Frazier is still 1 assist away from 100 for his career. He averages 1.24 a game. Nick Weiss is 8 loose balls away from 900 for his career. He averages 5.87 a game. He also had 9 loose balls in both games this past weekend. Just of note. If Justin Martin plays on Saturday, he will tie Kyle Cooling for 10th place in Buffalo Bandits history in games played. Connor Farrell is 18 faceoffs away from tying Rob Kirkby for 10th place in Buffalo Bandits history. He averages 29 a game. And he also is 2 face-off wins away from passing Darius Kilgore for 7th place in Buffalo Bandits history. He averages 16.93 a game. In the final one, Dane Smith is 8 assists away from tying John Tavares for 10th in assists in a single Buffalo Bandits season. Yes, it's that time again. With 64 set back in 2001, he is 9 away from tying himself with 65 set back in 2016, and he is 10 away from tying Sean Evans with 66 set back in 2019.
This is the only problem with Dane being so good is I don't like that
Dane,
time of year.
I'm going to name the segment after Dane Smith.
Yeah, the Dane show, the fastest Dane milestone minute. It gets tough when he just keeps climbing up leaderboards every single season, mainly eventually surpassing himself. But it's like the video games you see in like arcades and things where it's just one name over and over and over for the entire top 10 score. That is what Smith is he's aiming for the rest of his career. He's just all top 10 lists for Buffalo Bandits are going to be just Smith over and over and over.
Yeah, and he's playing in his age 32 season, and he's already top 10, going to be top 10 in points.
Ridiculous.
JT's got to be looking over his shoulder nonstop at that points and goals record.
Goals
record he might not
Smith.
Be able to get to. I'll be honest with that one. I don't know if he's going to touch the goals record, but he's going to obliterate the assist one, and he's going to surpass the points one. I'm guaranteeing on both of those ones.
And he did what he needed to do with the single season goals. He has that record, so he proved he can score with the best of them. He's like, I don't even need it anymore. I proved that I can score as many goals as I want, and now I'm just going to focus on setting up my teammates.
Yeah, I'm going to get Josh Byrne just enough so he doesn't pass me on that level. But, yeah, that wraps up that one. Again, I will make sure I post it on Blue Sky this week. Again, I apologize. NL Outlook to wrap up the show. It's a fully loaded NL schedule this week. Buffalo has the final game facing off of the weekend. So all of these are taking place before Buffalo even draws. 5-4 Halifax, which is on an absolute banger right now, facing the 5-4 Ottawa Thunderbirds. Ottawa Black Bears getting a big victory last week over the Albany Firewolves. Friday 7:30. I am butchering all words today, Phil. It's been a great show. 2-8 God. 2-8 Vegas is heading to the 6-4 Mammoth Friday at 9 p.m. 8-2 Saskatchewan, who are right on Buffalo's tail, goes to Vancouver, who's sitting 5-5 Friday at 10 p.m. And then you move forward to Saturday. 2 7:00 games. The first one, 5-4 Swarm, go to the struggling and barely on life support 3-7 Toronto Rock at 7. 5-5 Philly Wings, who are losers after starting 5-1. Man, watch out. Actually, I think it's 5-2. I think they're on a 3-game losing streak. Wings go to the, again, also on life support, 2-8 Firewolves this time, Saturday at 7. And then the 4-7 Nighthawks, who desperately need a win, are going to Calgary, who are sitting 6-4 on the year. Another team who I think a lot of people need to apologize to, because I'm one of them. I thought they'd finish dead last. I thought they were one of the only teams in the entire league that didn't get better. And, yeah, they did. They all they had to do was just drop that dead weight that was in net. That's my guess. I gotta watch it. He's got a podcast now. He might come after me.
And bring in the old guys who we said weren't going to be enough. They've been enough.
I said their offense was going to be really good. I just said their defense and goaltending was going to struggle. I just didn't know that the good offense would lead them to a 6-4 record that's currently third in the standings. I'm sorry.
But yeah, I mean, the outlook is interesting. I still don't believe in Ottawa, even though they finally got their guy back who unleashed heat, and that offense, we'll see how they do against Halifax. But I think Halifax is the, right now, better team in that one. Vegas, I don't see them going to the Loud House and taking down Colorado. Saskatchewan.
Let me ask you a quick question on that, because I know we're going over it. And this might be a controversial take.
Oh, boy.
And sorry if it is. The question's got to be asked. What do you do with Sean Williams after this season? I mean, he's in year 3 of this. I know it's a brand new franchise. I know he's the GM and head coach. Does he do a Paul Day type of role where he steps away either from the bench or the GM role and get fresh eyes on this thing? Because, they were supposed to take another step this year. They haven't done that. I think they've actually taken a step back. And I know in net, they've been struggling between Kells and Getty, but their offense hasn't been unlocked well. I think adding Donville to the lineup, and Hannah looks like an exciting player as well, one of the best in America, and Webster looks good. But it's just I don't know if they're built well enough to either warrant him continuing to be GM. I think, to me, if I'm Sean Williams, I'm either stepping away from the bench or stepping away from the GM role. I think having two, he's got to have fresh eyes on that, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they're just not even close to contending is the problem. It's not. It's like you said, they're not even taking. Right, and they're not taking steps forward is the problem. Like 3 years is whatever if the team is increasing each year, even if they're not making playoffs, as long as they're in
showing
the fight.
Something.
Right, they're showing some kind of improvement, some kind of life. Right now, they are not. They're just a team that every week you're just whoever is going up against them, you're like, oh, it's an easy win for Colorado this week, and they're just going to beat up on them, and they just consistently keep getting beat up. Is the other thing? It's not even close in most games, which is just the problem. It looks horrible right now. I know the last game it was close; it was within 2, so it's not every time, but their goal differential is close to -50. That's not good. I don't know if you know that, but not great. And like you said, yes, the goaltending is struggling, but at the same time, the offense isn't up there with even league average for that amount of games played. So I do think something needs to happen, and it'll be interesting to see after the season, kind of like you said, what way they go. Do they do the Paul Day Philly thing? And Philly came out of the gates on fire, looked amazing, and now they're starting to fall back to earth a little bit, which isn't great for them. But moving on, I think Saskatchewan, Vancouver's still a weird team to me. Their offense is still weird. Their defense is great. Yeah, I don't know. I think Saskatchewan should take care of that one. Georgia, I think all Bandits fans will be rooting for them. Keep Toronto down. We want to keep pushing them out of playoffs. Philly and Albany. Albany's been, wow. Talk about a team with just the exact opposite of what happened last year. And the expectations last year were 0. The expectations this year were high, and they went right back to the Albany of 2 years ago. I just don't understand their implosion. I know they're missing a lot of people on defense, which is big. And they are missing, a lot of that defense is their leadership as well, but brutal implosion on their part. And then Rochester and Calgary. Calgary is real hot right now. Rochester coming off a win, like you said, for a lot of these teams, a lot of life support being thrown out there right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a big week for some of these teams with, Albany is pretty much all but out of it. Vegas is the same. Toronto, it's, you just lost Brian Cameron. You had to sign Nathan Grennan, who's probably going to be on the left side as well. If you win, you're sitting at 4-7, you're still in contention. But if you lose and fall to 3-8, your best record could be 10-8. I mean, you're really on life support for a lot of these teams right now. And that is one way that, the unified standings, and we talked to Cooper Perkins about this as well. Unified standings have done a ton of good for this league. The one negative it has done is there might not be a ton of movement at the trade deadline in March because so many of these teams still think they're in it. I mean, Vegas and Albany, I think, is if they do lose this week, their best they can do is 9-9. I don't know if that's good enough to get them in the playoffs right now because a lot of teams that are, you got Calgary who's in third at 6-3, and you got I think it's Philly down in 10th right now at 5-5. There's a game difference between those teams that you can either go from 10th to 3rd or 3rd to 10th really quickly. But it's those other teams right now that are below that, what does Rochester do? They got that young core. Would a team like Halifax, or do they believe in Warren Hill? Does, there's a goalie market out there. Does Calgary think that Cam McLeod is that goaltender of the future in net, or do they call Rochester and go like, hey, you got Hartley already. what would it take to get a guy like Riley Hutchcraft, who played really well in net? I think that would put Calgary over the top and be a legit threat in the playoffs. So the one disadvantage of the unified standings is just all these teams still think they're in it, so there might not be a very active trade deadline. Is if like Albany and Vegas somehow win this week and they think they're still in it. So I think that is one reason why you would root for them to lose, is so you can get some type of movement at the trade deadline.
I was going to ask you what's it take to get some. That was going to be one of my questions. But the other problem I have with that take is also just, it's not just making playoffs. It's, do you have the team to win?
Yes.
I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like, yes, you can possibly, a lot of these teams, no, there's no way you're going on like a 7-1 or run or 6-0. Like, a lot of these teams just don't have it in them. But we'll say magically Albany flips it around, makes playoffs. Do they have enough to win the championship? And if you don't, what is best for your team's future in trying to get back or trying to get to that opportunity? Like, Toronto just played San Diego really close, Buffalo really close twice. Like, Toronto, if they sneak into playoffs, they have a team that has a ton of talent, a great goaltender. Like, they have the team that could make some noise in playoffs. Does Albany have that team right now? Probably not. Does Rochester? They should, on paper, be a little bit better than they do. But Vegas is a great example. Like, realistically, we'll say somehow they magically flip it around and win a lot of close games and squeak into playoffs. Do they have what it takes to go up against the Buffalo Bandits or whoever, the Rush right now at the top? Like, can they actually compete with them, or are you going to be a one and done and the future of your team is looking a little worse because you clawed all the way back and got into playoffs and didn't move anybody to maybe get some draft picks to help your future kind of prospects in the league? So even though teams might still be in it, I think they need to kind of look at themselves like, yes, we can make playoffs, but are we truly in it? And anything can happen in the NLL. Obviously, we see that week in, week out with magical wins and especially the one and done kind of games. But can they beat the top teams 2 or 3 times when it comes to, you know, second round and third round in the finals?
Yeah, it's a big, big week. We say it every week, but this, with how close the standings are, you want to try to pull ahead as much as you can.
And this is huge for the Bandits because now we'll assume / hope the Bandits don't collapse, but I mean 5-5 is not that far off from 7-1. If San Diego not only wins but then keeps the tiebreaker, like, this is a huge game that the Bandits need to try to win. I don't know. I was going to look it up and I forgot to. If the tiebreaker goes to goals immediately after head-to-head against each other, I don't know if it does. But if it did, the Bandits, A, want to win, but B, want to win by 2 and not just 1, like San Diego just beat them. So even for the Bandits, it's a big weekend. Obviously, you want the victory, but this is a big weekend, one of the first ones we've seen all season where it's that true split of when it comes to the standings later in the season, head-to-head battle. If San Diego takes 2 from you and finds their way back at the top of the standings and it comes down to that kind of thing for the seeding, that's a game that the Buffalo really needs to win simply for standings purposes as well.
So that will wrap up this episode. On the next episode, we will have a Sabres game that we get to joyously talk about, but we'll break down this rematch of Buffalo looking for revenge and San Diego looking for the sweep of the season series on Saturday at 10 p.m. Get your naps in because it's going to be a late one, especially if you're on the East Coast. Good luck and safe travels to anyone from Banditland that is heading out west to cheer on the Bandits and in Pechanga Arena, because it's tough to win out there and it's a long flight and long drive. Hopefully nobody's driving out there, but
enjoy the travels while you're there.
Yeah, safe travels and bring nice weather back for us here in Buffalo. But thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Make sure you check out that interview we had with Cooper Perkins. It's out now. It was out on Thursday, but we're going to plug it on Saturday, so you're not seeing 2 giant plugs in back-to-back. But it's out now. Go give that a listen, especially if you're going to be watching the San Diego game. Plenty of insight on who the San Diego Seals are. We're going to be doing that all rest of the season long, interviewing players and people from the upcoming Buffalo schedule. So stay tuned for that, a fun side series. Thank you to Tap That Tap Room and Totally Buffalo Store and Phrase Flowers for sponsoring this episode and this podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Remember, Phil's article dropped on Tuesday. Mine dropped on Thursday. Check out our store on our link tree on our socials or at the shop tab at the top of the website. Follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us that review on Apple and Spotify. Till next time, everyone. Bye-bye.